Hello, guys. These days in May are very special because we commemorate the victims of the Second World War. Throughout my childhood and youth, I have always associated the generation of war, children of war, with my grandparents. But since recently, when we talk about this children of war, the realities of war and war generations, we actually speak about ourselves. There are lots of Ukrainian children who were actually born during the 3 years of the full scale invasion and 11 years of Russian war against Ukraine. I am very honored to speak today with Hanna Hopko, who is perhaps the best Ukrainian foreign policy expert and also the head of the National Interests Advocacy Group, ANTS. And we will talk about this difficult but very important topics. Happy to see you, Anna.
Thank you for inviting me.
And as we speak at the very beginning of May, and Ukraine was a country that suffered greatly from the Second World War, during the time of the Second World War, there is one tough question that I want to discuss. In 1945, we celebrated the defeat of Nazism. It happened, and right now we have strong democratic Germany. But unfortunately, communist Soviet crimes continued for decades. There are millions of victims of that regime. And in this context, can we say that this epoch of totalitarianism was truly defeated during the Second World War, and or it continues until now?
Thank you, Anna, for actually daily doing this very important work of countering Russian propaganda, because truth matters and historic facts, because what our enemy, the aggressor state, is trying to do, actually to manipulate historic facts. So it's really important that we Ukrainians for centuries suffered a lot from Moscow, Soviet Union, and now Russian Federation from their imperialism. And when Nazi regime was defeated, unfortunately, Stalinist communism expanded its influence over Eastern Europe. So one occupation replaced another one. So it's because of geopolitical pragmatism that time. And every year we commemorate our fallen heroes, saying never again. But unfortunately, within 11 years, Ukrainians with such a fighting spirit keep defending free Europe, sacrificing lives of the best of our nation. But it's important to understand and what are the lessons from the defeat of Nazi regime, but not the defeat of Stalinist communism. And I think the lessons learned, if we really want to have a peaceful sky over Europe, or since within 11 years, when 11 years ago, when Russia invaded Ukraine, Russia acted alone. And now it's axis of tyrannies. So it's already Chinese soldiers in European theater. And before we've seen North Korean soldiers. So this is why stakes now really very high. And I think it's really important to explain the price we paid for Yalta and why now Putin, he doesn't want to end the war. He wants to win the war. He wants new Yalta. He wants, together with the US and probably China, to shape a new world order and actually to divide the world into the sphere of influence. This is very simple.
Yes, thank you so much. You are very right. It's unbelievable how we don't learn on the mistakes of the past decades, like the conference in Yalta. One thing that we clearly see is this tremendous difference between the past crimes are treated in Germany and in modern Russia. When Germany has become one of the strongest democratic countries right now, in Russia it is totally okay to worship Stalin, for example. Something unbelievable. You can see Stalin on this parades in May. You can see him as icons in the churches, something totally absurd. And we may say that this process of reckoning, it did not happen in Russia after the collapse of the Soviet Union. All these tyrants from the communist era became new like saints, superheroes of the modern Russian Federation. Um, how do you think? Why did it happen like that? And why so many people in the world do not pay much attention to the fact that if you, for example, mention Hitler in Germany, that's a crime. But if you worship Stalin in modern Russia, it's okay, it's a part of your patriotism.
So, because unfortunately, after the Soviet Union collapse, Moscow, the Kremlin, they didn't adopt the decommunization law, or like it happened in Germany, denazification, the condemning and actually the criminal responsibility for all like praising or something like this to Hitler. And I have one dream, and I believe that one day it comes true, to see at the Red Square of in Moscow, instead of uh, Lenin mausoleum and the monument of Stalin, to see the monuments of victims of Russian imperialistic wars. It's also many Ukrainians were killed during Holodomor, during Soviet Union, also Chechen War, which was a war with full obliteration of the Chechens. What's also happening also now. So this war to obliterate nation, people, and actually to destroy states. So this is why I think without repentance, it's impossible to build a modern democratic state. So this is why Germany, after being defeated, Nazi Germany, so they understood and they actually never praised Hitler. So it's a part of state policy. In Russia, it's in contrary. And until we see a monument of the victims of Russian imperialistic wars against many sovereign states, independent nations, so we will see the cult of Stalin, and the legacy will be repeated again, because there is no difference between Tsarist Muscovy, Soviet Union. So they keep this practice of killing, destroying, and this is the big gap. And also, remember, even in Ukraine, previously pro-Russian forces, they tried also to promote this myth about the great patriotic war. And on the 60th anniversary of the World War II, there was a special operation, St. George Ribbon. They try to also celebrate this victory with a lot of propaganda, and also using their representatives also inside Ukraine, and destabilize situation. So we in Ukraine adopted important legislation on decommunization, and we renamed streets, cities, towns, also demolished all the monuments of KGB representatives. And it's another way of cleaning our society from the evil heritage. So in modern Russia, they, in contrary.
They are like a Frankenstein. They change this disguise. They are an empire, then they are Soviet Union, now they are Russian Federation, but all these evil, toxic traces, they remain. And what is worse, that like in Germany, it was like 1933, 1945, and in Russia, we literally have the propaganda for centuries. Hanna, you travel a lot. You are doing an amazing job to explain Ukraine, the essence of our fight, and the importance of our joint future in Europe to the world. And I'm sure still you encounter a lot of myths that still circulate about the Second World War, about this heroism of the Russian people. Somehow they managed to, steal this victory totally to Russia, forgetting the contribution of other nations like Ukraine, like Georgia, like Belarus, and even that tremendous support from the United States. What are these top myths that you still have to fight, and how do you fight them?
So it's really important not to allow Russia to monopolize, privatize the victory over Nazi Germany and Nazism, fascism. And on Victory Day, we need to commemorate the victims of World War II, but not in Moscow, but in Kiev. There are different calculations and different historical facts, but it's obvious that Ukraine, being in the prison of USSR, paid the biggest price. And I remember the initiative of members of European Parliament in 2019, like Rasa Yuknyavinyche, former Minister of Defense of Lithuania and now member of European Parliament, and at that time, member of European Parliament Andrius Kubilius, currently the EU Commissioner on Defense and Space. So they proposed the initiative of commemoration in Kiev, explaining why Ukraine fighting against Russian imperialism deserve to be recognized as the biggest contributor of the victory over Nazis. And I think this is what we have to explain, and many initiatives like in Berlin to establish the monument of Ukrainian soldiers, not the Soviet soldiers. And of course, for Ukraine, this is not the issue of taking all the medals. No, it's about truth and fair facts. And also, we have to remind all the people in the planet how the World War II started. And actually the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. So this was the idea to, how to say, to destroy Europe by, independent states, when secretly Hitler and Stalin agreed for new sphere of influence in Eastern Europe. But this is how the World War II started. But then, of course, many Western capitals decided to bring USSR on their side to fight against Hitler. But at the beginning, this is really important to remember how and who, what was the motivation who started the World War II, and not to allow Russia to privatize the victory, and actually to say that this is the only country, because the biggest contribution and the bloodiest scenes of the war happened also at the Ukrainian territory.
Yeah, thank you so much for reminding about that Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, because perhaps it took tremendous efforts from Russian propagandists during this decade to erase the memory about it. and not that many memorials in Ukraine changed the date to the proper one. Many children, even after the collapse of the USSR, continued to study that 1941, 1945, when actually part of the Ukraine was in 1939 also attacked by these joint forces. Yeah, that's what we have to remember, and not to let other not very smart people divide the Europe up to their likings in the 21st century. Uh, we speak in this context of ceasefire, peace talks, and people still keep avoiding naming things the way they are. Sometimes you can still find like Ukraine conflict, not Ukraine war, even after these 3 years of the full scale war, 11 years of war in general. And sometimes I have this feeling that people are more afraid of terms genocide or terms world war than the world war genocide itself. They are simply afraid to pronounce it. And quite often, this pressure on Ukraine to stop defending itself is closely connected with not provoking the Third World War. What do you think? Maybe this Third World War is already happening because there is no specific date when you proclaim it has started. You've mentioned like China fights on the side of Russia. North Korean government confirmed openly the presence of their soldiers in Europe. So is it the World War III, or maybe it is the continuation of the Second World War? How do you feel about that?
So it's a very important question, and thank you for raising this. And I'm thankful to our Ministry of Foreign Affairs, especially Minister Sibiga. In November last year, in the hearings in Helsinki Commission of U.S. Congress, during his testimony, he requested the US Congress to recognize and provided legal arguments why Russian aggression should be recognized as a genocide against Ukrainians. So this is really important to understand the Russian motive, the scale of war crimes, crimes against humanity, and it's important also to explain our partners that by sacrificing Ukraine, appeasing the aggressor, you will never achieve sustainable peace. By feeding crocodile, so
Mhm.
you will be the next, not believing that if Ukraine is being eaten, then you are safe. No, because it's now clear, and we analyzed the institutional cooperation between the alliance of attorneys. It's exchange of intelligence and sharing intelligence data, military drills, intensification of cybersecurity cooperation, increase of trade of dual-use products. So we in Ukraine, probably Ukrainians and our country is number one in having this unique experience how to counter it, not just one state, the axis of evil countries, or we call them horses, 4 horses or 5 horses of apocalypse. So, and it's important to also explain that with Ukraine, the world has better chances to defeat axis of evil states. And especially in Brussels, when the EU is planning to become a defense union and
Mhm.
geopolitical player, so I'm trying to explain the faster you confiscate Russian sovereign assets within the Make Russia Pay campaign,
Mhm.
the better you equip with money to increase defense production, and especially Ukraine has unique drone production facilities and everything. So the better we prepared, the higher chances of deterrence, not to attack European nations, and for us to win, because I believe that this war is winnable. The question of political will and don't be afraid. This is the key for the West, because some capitals, they are more afraid of Ukraine victory than Russian defeat. They are afraid of this defeat of Russian imperialism. I've observed this for last 11 years. And now it's a time to finally explain that sustainable peace without justice or at the expense of justice and without security guarantees can never be achieved. The same like in the World War II. Without Ukraine, there would have been no victory. It's clear. So now, without Ukraine, without our unique experience, without our fighting spirit, so you could never, because the modern warfare changed, shifted to the electronic warfare, drones. So this is why Ukraine is an asset. And we have to explain, especially Trump and his administration, what is at stake for America. It's about credibility of the US and America, make America great again. It doesn't mean America acting alone or against its strategic partners and in cooperation with Russia, having reset and some secret talks. So this is really very dangerous, and I hope that US Congress will finally demand from Trump and his administration, like using congressional oversight, asking them to report how they are defending American interest first, because at stake it's American leadership as a superpower and American credibility. So we should ask Trump, don't restore Russian, weak Russia, and don't lose America. I just visited Washington, D.C., and what I heard from some experts, former state secretary, different ambassadors, Hanna, for us, it's now crucially important to make America good again. It's not even talking about make America great again.
So true. And honestly, I'm so happy that we have you to explain all those things to the people who need to hear and understand this war is winnable. Unfortunately, these authoritarian regimes are very effective in cooperation with no doubts, bureaucracies, and pretty stable worldview. Negative, but stable. And what right now this Chinese and North Korean soldiers do in Ukraine, apart from killing Ukrainians, they also get invaluable experience that they will for sure later use against many other countries in very unpredictable places. So it's better to be with Ukraine than without Ukraine. And this vision of us as an asset, not as a victim, but actually as an experienced and very well trained partner, is amazing. Thank you for doing that. And here I will connect a link to Hanna's channel, because I know many of you can speak Ukrainian or can read with the subtitles, and she shares a lot of great initiatives that can help us win on the channel. And maybe a final question with this like optimistic subtone. I don't believe that anything can break the will of the Ukrainian people to win this war, and also to see the justice, because justice is vital. It's not about like, I have a plan to defeat, demilitarize Russia, but we also need to deliver justice. It was an important part of the victory in the Second World War. I read a lot of books that say in 1944, lots of Nazi generals were trying to assassinate Hitler, to start negotiations with the Allies, because they clearly saw the end is coming and they wanted to save themselves, to somehow reshape the country and remain at power. And we don't want this to happen with Putin and co and all the people responsible for thousands of war crimes in Ukraine and this real genocide that YouTube so much doesn't like, but that's what it is. And my question to you, this what lessons can we learn from maybe this like Nuremberg processes, from the end of the Second World War, for the lasting peace, for this normal strategy even for the Russian population. I don't call them citizens, but even for the Russian population, because come on, they've never experienced what democracy is. We cannot expect them to build it. And it is really dangerous to appease the evil and follow this like capitulation plans after we've gained so much victories and so much experience. So what lessons can we learn from the end of the Second World War for the real defeat of Russia?
Thank you for this, I would say, very philosophical and ideological question. Because it's about Russian imperialism. The Soviet Union collapse became the end of communist ideology, but not the end of Russian imperialism, with all the genocidal practices against many nations. And what we are observing now inside Russia, so besides economic problems, there are many cracks in the economy, plus tensions in different regions, because an ethnical cleansing. Also, what's happening when Putin's regime sent many Buryats, Kalmyks, different people, some of them at the beginning were just mobilized, and the level of poverty. So Russian oligarchs, they grabbed natural resources of Tatarstan, Bashkortostan, and we have campaign Make Russia Small Again, Make Russia Moscovy Again, the famous T-shirts and the T-shirt diplomacy. So, but we are trying to explain this Russian imperialist ambitions and how it's expanded from Moscovy size, very tiny. And by the way, this is one of the biggest fear of Putin. And that Russian Federation might turn into the Moscovy size. And honestly, if you see what's happening in Bashkortostan, Tatarstan, Udmurtia, Yakutia, so I'm not sure that people really satisfied with the general policy of a current modern, I would say also totalitarian regime. Because in DC, we discussed with many Congress representatives first that it's impossible. This is very naive approach of some of American representatives to decouple Russia from China. They are ideologically very similar, even if they have this Chinese expansionism in a very sophisticated way, also Russian imperialism. And second, I don't believe in any ceasefire. I remember at the beginning of Russian invasion 2014, 2019, when Ukraine was under huge pressure from our Western partners telling us, Ukrainians, don't ask lethal weapon, only political diplomatic means, only peaceful settlement. When Russia was preparing for the full-scale war and started hybrid warfare against NATO and the EU countries, like subversions, sabotage, and different other like interference in elections. So we discuss many things, and I'm trying to also explain. Look, don't buy the ceasefire or negotiations. Only Russian defeat and justice. Justice and tribunal like Nuremberg is key to help Russia to be free from this Soviet legacy, Stalinist communism regime, and current Russian regime. And I never support when some so-called good Russians telling that there are two wars. One, Putin's war against Ukraine. Second, Putin's war is against Russians. No, guys. There is Russian imperialism, and either you fight against this and change your society. And also just to explain that, look what's happened with the abducted Ukrainian kids, which we are demanding to bring them back, around 20,000 or even more, because these Ukrainian kids are being mobilized to Russian armed forces. So they are preparing, brainwashing Ukrainian kidnapped kids for as a future soldiers to fight against Ukrainian Nazi. This is what they are saying. So this is double crime. It's a human trafficking, and it's double crime to use Ukrainian abducted kids as a future soldiers. And if you analyze the number of Ukrainian kids in the temporarily occupied territories, it's more than 1 million. Can you imagine if Russia will mobilize all Ukrainian kids? So is Russia preparing for the ceasefire? Does Putin or Kremlin really want to end the war? No. This is why we all need to convince our partners that victory of Ukraine is in interest of all of us. This is the only way to deter and prevent the access of evil. So instead of making pressure on Ukraine on capitulation, because all these ideas that Crimea should be recognized as Russian, that Ukraine should forget about NATO membership. So it's about capitulation. But we have to seize this opportunity of vulnerabilities inside Russia, economic problems, and make Russian defeat faster, and not to allow Russia to trap our strategic partners like United States with this ceasefire when Putin just and Russian imperialists, they just want to buy time to rearm, regroup, redirect their forces, and together with China, Iran, North Korea, and within these 11 years, de-sovereignization of Belarus already happened. So, and within last 3 years, I visited Japan, South Korea, Taiwan 3 times. So it's very clear all this interconnection between European theater and Indo-Pacific. So geopolitical importance of Ukraine defeating Russian imperialism, that never again Russia attack Ukraine and other sovereign states, should be guaranteed by victory of Ukraine, not ceasefire or some peace settlement, only Russian defeat. It never happened during the World War II, so Stalinism. So now it has to happen. This is our moral duty, and this is, I believe, it will happen. And Ukraine, world known as a breadbasket of Europe, and by the way, Russia also wanted to weaponized food
Yeah.
hunger, but Ukraine is a spiritual basket of the world. We inspire people, and we are just obliged together to win.
Thank you. That is so beautiful. Like, yeah. And I do have a lot of viewers from Taiwan, for example, who beg us to win this war for the sake of peace and security globally. And it seems to be so obvious that we need to defeat this evil. Otherwise, it will inspire more and more of other evil regimes to attack other countries, either directly or indirectly. But this will cause negative consequences to our allies too. And definitely, as you've said, fear is not the best strategy. In this case, you have Ukraine to do the job. And I feel like I already know what can we talk about next. If you agree to come to the channel, we can make this psychotherapy session where you should not be afraid of the dissolution of the Russian Federation, because this is a natural process.
So yeah, because what I'm observing that currently United States Trump administration, they are helping to save Russia when Russia is about to pay the price for its war against Ukraine. So I'm just trying to be a little bit diplomatic that YouTube not the more viewers will have.
Yeah. Uh, I totally agree with you. I hope they are already on this brink and nothing can save them. It doesn't seem like Trump is very good at saving American economy. Maybe he will save Russia the same way. Thank you so much, Hanna. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your love, because all that you do is with love to our country. We're happy to have you, and you're always welcome on the channel. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. God bless Ukraine and all our defenders. Thank you.